All right, we are joined by Paul Bettany. This is so a little context here. So we just did an interview with Anthony Mackie the other day. This is our first that we've ever done an interview with somebody who's in Marvel, not just in Marvel, but we're talking about Marvel things. So we can just jump right into Marvel things. That makes it rather easy for us. WandaVision, it's not only out, but if you're listening to this right now, you've likely seen the third episode. I would say probably wait to listen if you haven't seen the third episode. We're not going to like dive into, I'm not even sure if Mr. Benny's going to tell us anything, but I would, if you haven't seen the third episode, maybe avoid it because we're going to reference the third episode. So that's for everyone listening. But before we get into it, how's everything going with you? Crazy whirlwind. This has to be towards the end of the press tour. How are you feeling now?
Press is very different in COVID, and it kind of goes on forever. Like I used to complain about a press tour, but at least a press tour had walls, right? And then eventually you'd get to the end of the thing and there'd be like 3 days in LA and then 2 days in London and a day in Berlin or Paris, and then maybe you'd go to Asia for 2 days and then that would be it. And you'd feel like, oh my God, what a nightmare this is. I can't believe I have to, and now I long for it because actually this is just, you know, they say, well, you're at home, you're not doing anything. You know, why don't you do some more press? And you go, yeah, all right. So you're doing more press. That's not to say I'm not thrilled to talk to you guys, but you know the sort of thing I'm talking about. The junket 5-minute interviews feel like a circle of hell that Dante never wrote about, where you're repetitively asked the same question, you know, for 10 hours a day for, you know, ever.
Yeah, we've been on like the bad. We actually don't do really any of the junket interviews, but for those who don't know about the junket interviews, you're lined up for many different people for the entire day. We've been at the back end of those, and you can see it in the eyes of some people. They're like,
oh my God, and it's like 3 days, and it used to be 10 minutes, and sometimes you still get the 10-minute ones, and they are faster than the 5-minute ones. I swear to God, because I feel bad for the 5-minute guys because their editors said, get me this, this, and the other, right? And then there's no time for it. And then whatever else you want, you can talk about after that. But get me those 3 things. There's only time for those 3 things anyway. And so then you are asked the same 3 things for, you know, ever. And I'm a creative person, so I just start lying.
We're going to ask you some different things, I think, today. We'll be prepared.
We'll try to mix it up. We won't tell you to tell us about WandaVision because I guess we'll get into it. We've already seen the first couple. Everyone's at least seen the first 2. People seem to absolutely love it. We were big fans. We're big Marvel fans to begin with. The reaction has been pretty crazy. And right now, I guess within it, again, we've seen the third. Wanda in this third episode just had kids. Pretty crazy episode. Your character Vision breaks down. So in the first 2, we kind of got like little cracks, right? Little weird moments that kind of threw you off, almost like Twilight Zone-y weird moments. But this one, pretty head on. Vision is saying something's wrong here, which I think we actually heard that quote in maybe some trailers. We heard a name drop of Ultron. I should say it quietly in the office. People may not have heard it, but Ultron gets name dropped. It's some pretty crazy stuff for Marvel fans. So maybe set the tone. You've done these interviews before the series, but now we're 3 episodes in. What can we maybe expect from this point? Will it only get weirder, which is the word we've been using for a lot so far for this show and the future of Marvel? Weird, I guess.
Yeah, it's really bonkers. And I think what you're going to get is, well, as you can see, more and more things are starting to encroach into into this reality that they're all living in. And Wanda gets very bothered by those things, and she's really disturbed by them, and Vision is beginning to suspect that there is some need for some sort of investigation into exactly what on earth is going on in this town that seems to be moving through the American century at breakneck speed. When you get to the end of episode 3, and I don't know how much to give away because episode 3 is very definitive. The end of it, where you really understand that there is the other world is right outside this world, and they're very aware that something is fucking wrong in this place too. And I all I can say is that episode 4 is people. I think people's minds are going to go boom. I mean, I just think they're just going to explode.
We were saying how like these first 3 episodes have almost felt within itself like a mini arc, and almost like I don't want to say a full setup, but like kind of leading you towards the explosion that will be episode 4. So we're glad to hear you say that, because now we're going to be super excited for it. But what can we kind of expect sort of for the rest of the season? Because for us, one of the things we liked going into this and we're appealed to is just like, we like the idea that it's so unique and different, WandaVision, right? So like maybe what's a little bit of something we can expect?
Okay, you can expect those 2 worlds to start. There being more conflict between those 2 worlds, and the next thing that you can also, and I don't want to give too much away about the future episodes, but I will tell you this. There were more special effects requirements for our TV show than there were for Endgame.
Oh wow!
I saw the price tag on production was higher. Well, there's not much more you can say than that. Like that kind of full stop makes it. But I saw that the price tag was higher than the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, and I assumed that was probably a big reason why. There's so many things happening in this.
There are some very there are some difficult and expensive things. and some exhausting things. I mean, poor Matt Shakman is the director across the whole show. Can you imagine his breath right now?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Matt Shakman's breath, he has been in an edit suite for like 4 years or something like that, just drinking coffee and panicking. And so, yeah, God knows. Poor thing.
So you've done TV before, obviously you've done lots of movies, and one of the big selling points for this, both WandaVision and all the rest of the Marvel shows, is that it's movie quality, right? And like that's something that's going to be unique for all of these Marvel Disney shows. So what can you kind of tell us, like what's the difference that you've seen between the production of WandaVision compared to maybe any other TV shows you might have worked on before?
You know what? That's really hard to say, because most film sets feel the same, because in the end, you are standing in front of a camera with a guy with a stick and a furry microphone, you know, and a director and another actor. So in the end, there's something very insular about it, right when you're doing it. That said, the size of the toys are exactly the same, and you do notice the size of the toys when you're like, wow. I remember on Endgame, on Infinity War, driving down. It was very early in the morning, like 4 a.m. Sun wasn't up yet, and we were driving down into this town, coming into work, and I was like, where are we? I mean, I thought we were shooting out in the middle of the nowhere. And he said, that's a unit base. And I went, it was like the moment in Star Wars where they go, that's not a planet. I was like, that's not a moon. I went, wait, I thought it was a town that we were driving around. The size of it. But so there is that. But also in WandaVision, because of having the same director who is a bona fide genius, we were able to shoot it like a movie, in that we could cross shoot a lot of stuff, right? We could, not cross shoot. We could cross board the show. So because usually you're shooting in TV, a director will take on a 2-episode block, right? And whereas we could shoot whatever we wanted to shoot at any point. And consequently, that meant we were able to save time, and which is money, obviously. So if you shoot the first episode in 2 days, which we did, you can bank all of the rest of that time for the more complicated, actiony, special effectsy, more difficult stuff later on in the series. I mean, first, So that they made lots of clever production decisions like that, and but it felt very different to TV, to TV in terms of the sheer number of toys that you had, and it felt very similar to shooting a Marvel movie, except Lizzie and I having a lot more responsibility.
Pretty big responsibility. Your character gets as shined on of a light. I guess I made that up. As you've had. I mean, your character obviously very pivotal in Infinity War, Ultron, just Civil War. But now it's a little different. You get more time to flesh out and give Vision a personality, and obviously a very different way. And a lot of that is through these different eras in TV shows it nods to. What was your favorite one to shoot? And, obviously tough to give away because there's some we haven't seen yet, but we've seen a couple of the older ones now. And we know we get like a little look, maybe like a Full House, maybe The Office. I think Modern Family we saw a little bit in a commercial. Was there one that you really loved to get immersed in?
Well, I loved lots of them for different reasons. I mean, I think that if you study all of those sitcoms, which we really did, that it's a really interesting way to look at the American century is that the warmth and optimism of the 1950s shows really are reflective of confidence of sort of America in the 1950s. By the 60s, you're having the sexual revolution, and in a show like Bewitched, he's got this incredibly powerful wife, and he's embarrassed by her power, and he wants to reduce her power the whole time. And then, you're in the 70s, and the Vietnam War is raging. There's blood on the streets, and yet we've got the Brady Bunch. And then they start getting even cooler. You get the sort of 80s sentimental, teachable moments kind of thing, and then I guess you move into, you referenced it, Modern Family. There's something really cynical and cold about it. You don't even know whether they love each other.
Yeah.
And then you contrast that with where you were in 1950s American sitcoms. It's quite a phenomenal transition. So there were so many things, that is to say, there were so many things I liked about all of them in different ways. I guess let's talk about the one that's coming out or just come out, depending on whether you've bothered to watch it yet. But it's the 70s, and I loved it. I loved the conceit of it, and I also loved the fact that it looks like I bought a DeLorean, found some plutonium, traveled back in time, and wrestled Robert Redford to the ground on 3 Days of the Condor and shaved his head and stuck it to mine or something.
I like it. I totally see that comp now. I totally get that. Did it make it harder though you're playing a character playing kind of another character many times throughout this whole series? Like it sounds complicated, but was it doing that?
Okay. It's a complicated answer, but it's more simple than it seems in that there's a big payoff for, it's not an arbitrary reason that we're in all of these sitcoms. There's a big payoff that you go, oh, okay, I get now I get it, and it's a satisfying thing. And for me, wanting to track that he's still Vision, I realized, well, Vision's always been changing. He's like partly Ultron, he's partly Jarvis, he's partly Tony Stark, and now we're just throwing a bit of Dick Van Dyke in there, or Bryan Cranston, or whoever it is. And Vision survives if the center of him is really the same, and the center of him is decent and honorable and there for Wanda.
Pretty spot on answer. It's can't ask for more than that. Yeah. You mentioned an interview that I just read this morning, I think. I want to say it was with variety. You mentioned that when you got the call, you thought maybe you were going to be fired. You were like, I think I'm done. I'm not Vision. Next thing, you get the job, blah, blah, blah. But now you're presenting Marvel with some stories that you liked. You referenced House of M and the Vision, Wanda and Vision comics for Marvel. And you mentioned that this series maybe is like a little bit of blend of both. But if you're giving a suggestion for some people to maybe read some extra stuff, which one would you maybe focus on most? Would you focus on the Vision? Would you focus on House of M? If you want to pick up one comic right now while you're watching this show.
Oh, well, I mean, House of M is a classic, and it's so complex and layered, and I don't want to pick between those two. They are both brilliant. I think it's Tom King. Yes, it's Tom King. The Vision is and it is the Visions in suburbia, and him sort of trying to desperately create normalcy by making a family. And it's very different to this, and it's incredibly macabre. So it's very, very dark. So it is more grown-up fare for people. I wouldn't suggest kids.
Not yet, anyway. Talking about Vision's history, there's something that you mentioned in a previous interview. And it's that Vision has a purple penis that can change density. And I'm very curious how we can get access to that content. And if it's a pay-per-view type deal with Disney Plus or what.
Right. Yes, that was the sort of thing that you say off the cuff that then plays and plays and plays. Of course. What was I thinking? Of course. I assume that he does, and I assume that it, like the rest of him, is able to change its density. So there you have it. It was merely me putting two and two together and coming up with purple penis. So
that's
who
like
better than you?
That happened with Endgame too. I remember they made a joke about Ant-Man going up Thanos's butt, and then a month later, you're on the red carpet, and there's Josh Brolin answering the question on a live stream before going into the movie about Ant-Man going up his character's butt. Yeah.
Yes, there you have it. I know that there was. I know that Joss Whedon apparently really, really wanted the rendition of him when Vision first is born, before he's clothed. He was like, he's got to have a penis. And everybody, Kevin and Lewis, and everybody was like, I don't know, Joss. I mean, I'm not sure. He has to have a penis. I want to see some drawings of penises, and we're gonna pick. So they actually, somewhere that it is the rendition of Vision's birth with these penises, and they put them all up on the wall. And they all went in and they sat down, and just went, yeah, I'm 100% wrong. I don't need to see any. It just became very
Some things
clear
are better left unshown.
that he didn't need to see that. But Dr. Manhattan in the TV show.
Yep, and in the movie.
They didn't shy away from that decision.
No, they did not at all. You also get to hold something over, I believe. Well, for now, everyone, unless there's a character that appears that we don't know about, but you are the first MCU actor to appear across 3 decades. This
I just read the other day, and I was so blown away by it, and I couldn't quite work it out. I was like, can that be? And it turns out it's true.
That's unbelievable, honestly.
It's unbelievable. 30. I mean, honestly, that's bonkers.
I mean, that's you can now, like, you have a Marvel class that nobody has. You can.
Yeah, I mean, that's just me alone at the moment.
They're going to use you as a bargaining chip if they ever want Robert Downey Jr. back. They'll be like, you just got to go brag, and then you'll get him to be in another decade. Yeah.
Exactly. So Vision was originally not on the table when you accepted the role of Jarvis, but it was obviously something that developed as the storyline moved on. Were you, while you're watching, let's say, the first Avengers movie, were you like seeing all these characters on screen, these actors on screen? Were you thinking like, I would love to get out there? You know, I would like to be out there and be seen.
Okay, now I'm going to say something that I have to say very quickly so that you can't get the scissors in because this happened to me before. I didn't watch Iron Man 1 and 2, and but, and this is the bit that they cut out the last time I said this, was that's because I hardly ever watch anything I'm in, right? So I remember being interviewed about this before, and I went, oh, I haven't seen them. And that's the bit that went around.
We won't do that to you. Don't worry. Yeah.
Nope.
Because the truth is, I have now seen them all, but at the time I hadn't. But that was very normal for me because I often don't watch the things that I've made. I'm getting better at it as I get older.
So with
better at it, I directed a movie that I wasn't in, but my wife was, and I'm getting much better at being able to see myself on screen and not want to run away and hide in a cave.
It's not that uncommon. We've had Jesse Eisenberg on this show twice. He says he's literally still never watched anything he's been in. A lot of the actors we talk to, they don't. So you're not alone, obviously. Another movie we'd like to talk about is Civil War. There's two decisions made with your character that I was violently opposed to, and I assume you were too. The first is the notion that you could be even slightly slowed down by Hawkeye. And the second was that you were wearing a sweater throughout a significant portion of your airtime. So I want to know what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Okay, which one do you want to deal with first? Sweaters?
Let's do sweaters first.
I love the sweater.
Sweaters first. I think that he was trying to do this was an early attempt at trying to be human, right? And he kind of landed on a kind of Cary Grant thing with a cravat because he was like, well, I suppose this is what humans wear. And I imagine Jarvis on the weekend probably wore a cravat, or what do you call it? An ascot. You call it an ascot.
Yes.
An ascot in a shirt with a sweater and sort of sensible shoes. And so I think it was a sort of confused. It was a beta version, or whatever you say. Do you say beta? I've lived here so long. I don't know which is the English version anymore. Okay, so that's what I think was going on. Now let's deal with Hawkeye slowing Vision down. Yes, the Vision is very powerful, and this can be a problem for writers. That you need to disable if it's very difficult, I think, in an ensemble show to have Vision because he can just destroy everybody, right? So you need
same with Wanda, right?
Same with Wanda, and you need to sort of you somehow need to disable him or find ways to do it. So I thought it was. The excellent choice, of course, was Wanda making the decision to sort of imprison him for a while. But yes, I hear you. It's a challenge with Vision in an ensemble because he can kind of do a lot of shit.
Yes, he can. You mentioned a couple times, things that you say going wild. We had another one today, which this shouldn't surprise you because, again, anytime you talk about Marvel, I'm imagining it's going somewhere. But you mentioned the deleted scene from, I believe, Endgame, where Wanda was opening up and she saw your dead body somewhere. I think that was, I don't know who that was.
A deleted scene. I think
IMDb, that's who it was. Okay.
I think she mentioned it in an interview. And yes, there was never a deleted scene. There was talk about what should we do with with Vision? Should we suggest that there's going to be more, or should we let him really die? And in the end, and Kevin, it was a hard decision, and it was a difficult conversation for him. I think with me, Kevin was adamant, and he was right. I think that Vision needed to die, because I think that you would feel, even if you wanted him back in that way, I think you'd feel cheated.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, Kevin made a really difficult decision, and Kevin told me, because it was only there wasn't, when the show's that massive, there are ideas floating around the whole, as you're shooting it. So it never became a real thing that we shot.
Okay, that was my one, because it almost, I think it kind of got lost in the waves of the internet. I was like, a deleted scene, no one's seen, but that makes complete sense now, cleared up like that.
No, there was no scene that got shot.
Last thing before we go here, let's get one last tease. Again, obviously we're pretty excited about it. There's been so many things thrown around. They've said this is connected a little bit maybe to Loki. It's probably very much connected to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I think I said that right. They've teased Nightmare. They've teased Mephisto, the Devil. On a level, let's say 0 to 10 for shock and awe and like, oh shit, we've got a couple moments already. Where will people's minds be at the end of this series? Maybe in comparison to other Marvel things. How surprised do you think?
I think, okay, I think they're gonna be massively surprised by the end of this show. I mean, I really think people are going to be like, oh my God, and they're going to look at the MCU in a whole new light, and also have a much deeper understanding about in what direction it's moving. I would also say that, so many things get leaked and people find out about certain things, but there's this thing that's been kept completely under wraps that happens. And I work with this actor that I have always wanted to work with.
Oh!
And we have fireworks together, and the scenes are great, and I think people will be really excited. I've always wanted to work with this guy, and the scenes are pretty intense. So
that's great.
That's some there's some gossip that I probably shouldn't have told you, and I'm going to probably get a call from Marvel security saying, why the hell did you say that? But I did, and there it is.
Better than a purple penis comment, some would say.
We interviewed OT for Benley about Black Widow, and his power went off in the middle of talking about a spoiler once, and we joked that Kevin Feige was back there ending. Thank you so much. This is a blast. We'd love to talk again. We don't always just talk Marvel, so anytime. Congrats on the show, by the way. We're only 2 in. We know people are gonna love the third. It's an absolute blast. So thank you so much for joining us,
guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.